Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Business Barbershop podcast. I am Chris,
I'm Keane.
and I didn't adjust any of these levels before we started. And today we're live in studio, so I don't have any. We only got one video before we are coming back and back in studio to drop some docs off at the office. So, trying to figure this out as well. Hello. Because it ain't working right. Well,
Do I start over?
no. We're going to keep going.
Just keep going.
Yep.
I do have ideas, some stuff I want.
All right, cool.
What we could chat about.
Yep, we're going to keep going. All right, anyway, so thank you for making it through the first 30 seconds. If you'd like the show, leave a review, ask a question, whatever. And today, we don't really know what we're going to be talking about, except there is some real estate updates, my interesting real estate adventures. So we can probably start there and then just go wherever we want to go. Sound good to you?
Yeah.
All right. So let's see, refresh everyone. Tried to buy a duplex in Ohio. The appraisal came back under. The buyers would not budge on their price, and I wasn't bringing extra money to the table, so that deal died. Almost right after that, there was another deal that came up that was good, and it met both of these deals met the 1% rule technically, so that made it attractive for me, and we put an offer in, offer accepted, just a little bit under the list price. It had been sitting for like about 45 days or so. And the offer, one of the sort of contingencies in the offer was the guy did not want any haggling. Like he didn't want any,
Here's a good fair price, no back and forth.
yeah. He said you're buying it as is, essentially. So, whatever the inspection says, we're not reducing the price. We're not doing any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. Okay, fine.
You still put contingency in it, so that way if there's issues, you just back out then.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're not literally buying it as is, but what he's saying is if you find some stuff.
You can have your outs, but we're not going to be haggling.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we found some outs. we did that inspection and it was a mess.
Yeah.
So the house is like in a lot of disrepair, foundation problems that are like real,
Made the other one look better.
100% better. There was a dead mouse in the electrical box.
Okay.
The tenant, so they only got to see one half.
Yeah.
The tenant was home but would not let them into the other side.
Even after mutual.
They agreed to it. And then when the inspector showed up, they wouldn't let him in for whatever reason. They just didn't answer the thing. They talked to the one tenant. The tenant said that they had just recently had roaches in there that they were spraying for. It was a mess.
Termites and water beetles are typically the two that are more problematic because they're wood-destroying organisms. The other ones are gross, but exterminator, clean out.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a no-go. After my real estate agent, she went to the inspection. She had not been inside or seen it before. She said she would not put an offer on that house over $70,000 under what our contract number was. Wow. She said you have to put that. I thought to myself, I didn't tell her this. I was like, oh, this is a perfect project for Keane because this is exactly what he would like to do. Mm-hmm. Buy it. It needs some work.
The price would have to be right, though.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. Yes. But for me, it's something I'm just absolutely not interested in.
I'm wondering how many of these 1% rules over the middle. I mean, how old are these buildings?
Old. 1900.
Yeah.
They're very, very, very old.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if you could ever get to 1% with repair costs considered. So like cost being like your purchase price plus your rehab.
You would in this case, for sure.
It'd still be at 1%.
If you got it at the right price. I mean, if you got it at the correct price, definitely.
Because there's a thing to be said for like the capital expenditure budget for some of these rentals is going to be higher or lower depending on the kind of building it is and age of it. So, it doesn't matter that much if it's older if you've fixed up all the old stuff
Right.
and it's fit within your cost.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, because of this one, I bought it. Yeah. Well, my purchase price was like 170. So she was saying like, look, you're gonna have to put like 50K in. So you could buy it for 100, put 50 in, and it probably be worth about 180, 190.
Yeah.
And then you can rent it for 2K
Yeah.
plus, in that range. So it would have worked, but I'm like, look, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do this for fun, really.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Yeah.
want to spend any time on this. I have other places where I want to spend time.
Right.
So anyway, basically, I just kind of killed the deal. I just told her like, look, if you find anything else, let me know. And so we're kind of looking, but also, I'm just not in a hurry to do anything
Yeah.
anyway.
If works, it works.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the update on the story. And I don't know. Maybe I'll be in here next week with a new story.
Yeah.
It's possible.
We talked about home warranties, right? Did we talk about that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think for old houses and old appliances, it's wise.
Yeah.
My old property manager told me no. Did we talk about this before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was bad advice.
Yep. Yeah, I probably would have done one.
Shit breaking left and right after closing. I'm like, why did you say no again? Because it's a pain to deal with the claims. Yeah, well, that just cost me tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
Your answer.
At least for the first year. I mean, it's not cost prohibitive to do
It's
it.
funny because I put him on the one I recently bought, and we haven't had any claims yet I knew it was a lesser candidate for problems than the other ones because I could tell the owner had taken better care of them.
Yep.
But still, I learned my lesson. If they're old, warranty it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, this other property had a garage that literally needed to be torn down. It was not. It was
a falling shed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta love real estate.
So yep. So that's it. So now I'm not diverting my attention back to, where I should be, which is, growing my businesses and doing that kind of fun stuff.
I did think that there's something that so shout out to my friend Stanley, who he and I were talking last night. This is some advice that I've given to people to pass. I thought we should throw it out there. So one of the most common things I try to coach people on is to, when you get into real estate investing and being an entrepreneur, it's easy to get caught up in the game. And don't get me wrong, I will play the game, and who knows where my number will fall, right? But there's something to be said for setting goals based off what you're capable of, not thinking about what you really want, and possibly spending years of your life chasing something that doesn't really change what your goals are at, what matters to you. And so what I mean by that is when I ask people what their goals are in real estate investing, I very often get this blanket answer that tells me nothing about what they really want. And those goals might sound like, I want 1,000 doors under management. I want to do 100 flips a year. I want to do, I want to develop 50 new construction homes in the next 10 years, something like that. They'll throw some number out there. And it could be, I don't mind that it's something. I mean, I like that the goals are specific because that tells me that there's something you're really trying to go for, and goals do need to be specific. But when I dive into why that's the answer, I kind of get this like, well, I think I can do it. I think I'm capable of it. And someone else did it, and so can I. And I don't want to take away from that because I definitely feel like, hey, there is something to be said for realizing that your value and what you can provide can help you reach goals that maybe in the past you couldn't, and you're not going to let them go or have other people take. Because, in the world of being an investor and entrepreneur, it's so easy to find a million people who will kind of say, hey, you shouldn't do that for one reason or another, or it's not going to happen, or the risk, or whatever, right? And so most people are being told their whole life that they can't do something. So having this aspiring goal that basically proves you've done something it's kind of like the first evidence of like confidence of what you can achieve. And I've had those moments. But I've always had this kind of sage wisdom in my ear from my mentors growing up to remind me what it's all for, right? So I think you and I had this conversation once about like, I did a deal where I made more than $1 million in the first 60 days I owned it, right? Over the lifetime of owning that deal, it'll probably make me close to $10 million, right? Because it's a mid long-term hold with room for value add on top of it. And I remember thinking to myself, like, if I did a deal that made me $1 million in a relatively short window of time, all I'd have to do is commit to holding that asset, stabilizing and holding the asset. And if I get better at this, I could probably find them more easy and find ones that have more margin in it. And so if I did that like close to 1,000 times in my career, I'd be a billionaire. And that's without time appreciation, right? Mm-hmm. So somewhere between 500 to 1,000 deals. Could I do that in my lifetime? I'm like, yeah. Well, maybe I should chase a B status. Maybe I could be a billionaire. Fucking watch out. I'm going to do this shit. And then I had that realization. I know we had this talk, right? Of like, what would that number really need to look like? And if I had some really A-class, world-class assets that would, such as like a nice, super nice primary or whatever, then maybe that number is like $50 million. If I give up the $10-20 million house on the mix, right? It could be as low as 25, 30, and I'd be just golden, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, not even 100 million, right? We're talking like fractions of fractions of the Sentinel mark. And for a moment, I almost got inspired to try to chase a B status. I'm not saying that to put a cap on my goals, but what I'm trying to say is find out what you really, really want, like lifestyle wise, and then engineer it backwards. It doesn't have to be X amount of doors. It doesn't need to be just this net worth that you don't know why that's the number. I think that people should be more specific about what they really, really want in life. Because one thing I do know is this. Paul Allen would have traded all those billions of dollars for just another day. Right?
Yes. But yes. But the other thing too is he wasn't going for all the B's.
No.
Right? He just loved what he did.
Yep.
And it just happened to really, really scale.
Yeah, I'm not going to put a lid on your guys' goals. Don't get me wrong here. My saying is, if you get there, living the life that you enjoy, great. But don't sacrifice the life you really want to get to some number that you're capable of that isn't what you really want in life, because none of it matters at the end.
That's right.
And
you're going to be unhappy.
And the most valuable things in your life don't have a price to them, right?
Maybe.
Money can be associated with it.
But the price is smaller than
way
you think
smaller.
It is.
Yes.
Typically, 1,000 doors or whatever number you're going to put together, you probably get there significantly faster if you write down what you really want. I have people do this all the time. Tell me what your perfect day looks like or your perfect week. Where are you spending your time? Where do you wake up? And be very specific about it.
Yep.
And then you can look at that and you can just basically add up what it costs, add 30% for taxes, add 20% more just so you can save and invest, and you're there.
Yep.
And for most people, you're going to come in at maybe $100K a month, and you will be living large as fuck.
Well, that's the thing is like,
you know what I'm saying?
Because look, this is where this words comes from. I've had multiple years, not just a month, but I've had several years where I've averaged right around $100,000 a month. And this is without the sheltering this is before I had all the sheltering of the businesses and properties offsetted. So it really those years really are the equivalent of probably cash flowing net positive on a real estate portfolio, like 70, 80,000 a month because of the tax portion, right? Like making $1.2 million on W-2 income and not having any traditional tax shelters, you pay shit tons of tax. Yep. And I'll just be honest with you. When I make that kind of money, no, I can't buy whatever house I want. No, I can't just buy whatever yacht I want. No, I can't just buy private jets all I want. But I can, outside of those three categories, buy whatever the fuck I want.
Right.
Like I just go into a store, not even look at a price tag. I'll take it.
Yes.
Right? There's always exceptions to the rule. I'm a watch guy. Are there watches I can't buy? Yes, of course. But there's nothing inside the Rolex catalog I couldn't buy. It's only the quote unquote off catalog pieces I'd have to like budget for.
Right.
Right? That kind of stuff. And let's be frank. That doesn't fucking matter anyways. Even for a person who likes watches.
Correct.
A funny topic. I was just showing my ops manager a watch I bought this morning. It's $900, and I could not be more excited for that thing to show up. Then, like, I'm not saying I'm more excited for that watch to show up than I am some watches that I have that cost much, much more. But, it's just, I try to be, I want to be more unattached to what the general public thinks. I've always been, by nature, a very against the grain kind of a guy. And so, almost to the point, almost to a detriment. And so I think in my older years, I've learned to look, sometimes the crowd has a good opinion for a reason, right? And so don't ignore what they're saying sometimes, but also don't put too much weight into what they say. If everything says that the crowd is moving in the wrong direction, don't be afraid to go against it.
Yeah. Well, when we're talking about goal setting and things like that, I would not listen to the crowd at all. That's the hardest part. I think that's why people don't.
Clearly, Mr. I'd never want a primary residence. Yeah,
that's right. But I think that's why people don't speak about goals like that, because what everybody wants is like so different, and sometimes it seems so small, so tiny.
Yep. What I also know is that people don't know sometimes what they really want. They don't take the time to really think about it.
For sure.
And I think that a good example of that was the story I give about, like, would you rather be Paris Hilton or Tony Stark? It's like, and I'm not talking about like life, because I don't want to be Paris Hilton. I'd rather be Tony Stark as a person, right? Sure. But for real estate, own like okay, let's talk about the real estate we know they own. We only know Tony to own two things, right? Stark Tower and his beautiful Malibu waterfront property, right? So that is about as a perfect of an owner-occupied scenario as you could hope for. I own the building my business operates out of. I own my house, and look, you can't get anything nicer than that. But if you said, okay, forget the person, just take the real estate portfolio. Would you rather own all these resorts around the world? You can stay at any of them anytime you want. Those things are making you money.
Yep.
And the only thing that happens when you stay at the resort is you make a little bit less at that location, but the one you just left makes a little bit more. And you could travel anywhere in the world, always stay at no cost, right? And in fact, all the food, lodging, all that's included too. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have one nice, beautiful house at Malibu Point? And if I ask the random public that, 9 times out of 10, they'll say they'll take the hotel situation, right? So it's interesting. So let's do this in reverse. Pretend that you own some kind of small multifamily of 2 to 4 units that makes enough cash flow that even if one place wasn't occupied, it still makes some money. But when they're all occupied, it makes more money. And you have like 5 of those across the country, maybe one international property like that. And they all make money. And you can stay at any one of them anytime you want. And whenever you stay at that one, you make a little bit less, but still makes money. And then the ones that you aren't staying at make even more. And they make you extra cash flow, and you always have a place to stay forever, right? Then why is it everyone says, I want a free and clear Rambler in retirement, and they don't want, it's like just take the exact same scenario and shrink it down in size, right? Yeah. And I think it's just because people because they get so stuck into what society tells them what a successful retirement looks like, they start to morph towards it, and they never really take the time to ask what they really want in their life, what they really want their day to look like, what's the perfect game look like for them, and then trying to live that thing. And like, what's the simplest way to get to that without just throwing a bunch of money at it?
Yes.
Half the countries I like to visit, what we make in a week would you live like a king there for a month.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think, though, when you talk about things like that, when you're talking about what other people want, I know a lot of people that do just want to own their Rambler free and clear.
Sure.
And live close to their grandkids.
Totally.
And, I don't know, play bridge on Saturdays or something. And that's totally fine. I think where, like, I can tell you where I get stuck thinking about this stuff sometimes is I'm just like, I don't really know what I want. I don't know what because when I talk about like goals for me, it's pretty general, but it's also deep in a way.
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to do whatever I want, right? I want to not worry about money, and I want to be able to go wherever I want. I just don't want anybody in charge of me, basically. But that
Spoken
means,
like a true entrepreneur.
but that you know, that kind of means different things at different points, probably in my life. You know, like right now, I'm not spending a lot of time out of Kirkland because you know all the kids are in school and there's sports stuff, and like you know, could I go all over? I could, but that's not like really what I want to do.
Right.
You know, I like.
I don't worry about you with your goal planning. You're pretty clear about like what matters to you.
Yeah, it's like my businesses are fun. I like growing them. The money is nice to have, and you know, I just want to keep doing more of that.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just that's like I'm pretty good right now. What I liked, I mean, you know, I think there's a level of security that you want to try to create, which is I'm still I think in that stage. You know, like.
Yeah.
Like I would love to just not have to worry about money ever again.
Right.
Just have enough where you know it's like it don't matter.
Yeah.
You know, it's either going to just keep sort of reproducing on itself via compound interest or just you know appreciation or whatever that is, and you just go do whatever you want.
My point is though is that like I just think people should be really clear about like I think that you are pretty clear about what you want. You want to like what you do for work. You don't have to worry about money. Do whatever you feel like and have financial freedom. Support your family and hang out with your kids and whatever. Right. I'd say that my goals aren't really that different either. You know,
Yeah.
I just you know I can coast on the investments and get to the number part.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like how do I make sure I'm making enough, liking what I do between here and there. And if that makes the number bigger near the end, then great.
Yeah, there are some. I mean, okay, there are some specific things that I want. You know, like I want to have a house in Cabo.
Yeah.
You know, I want to have. You know, so there are like these things that I am. You know, like that are on my
Well, I have a
to-do list.
I have a whole board right
Correct.
there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I've got something that's kind of similar. I just I only want a couple things though right now. The thing is when you get those, something else kind of pops up.
What's funny is I'm
typically.
looking at it, and even though it doesn't look exactly the same, if I just did a remodel on some of the units I just bought, it actually kind of looks like two of the pictures right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's like little building hanging over a tall cliff with views of that lake and then the trees and the mountains. And I'm like, all I have to do is do a remodel
Yeah.
and expand the window sizes of the property I just bought, and it looks just like that.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You know, I look at the watches and I'm like, two of the watches, or three of the watches, I have versions of those watches, although I'm about to sell one of them.
Nice.
You know, and it's like it's like small touches. It's like, well, maybe I should just remodel one of the rooms to look like the bunk room that's on there for the vacation rental, right? Or maybe I should, you know, it just they're actually I'm not that like a lot of stuff I kind of have. The only thing I'm not even close to having is that car. I'm not much of a car guy, but there's that old convertible Bronco I thought was kind of cool.
Yep.
You know, so.
Yep. The key is that when you're doing this stuff, though, is to step outside of like what everybody thinks you should do, and it's hard. When I do this exercise, I tell people too, like, don't even. People get so caught up on different things. What do their kids want? What does their spouse want? I always tell them, like, look, you should write out your own perfect day, regardless of what your spouse wants, regardless of what your kids want. And then what you should do is have your spouse do the same thing. And then you share your lists. And the goal is to give each of you your perfect day.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like you can have it all. You may have to tweak some things, you know, to fit it all together. If somebody wants to travel a lot and somebody wants to stay home, that's going to be something to figure out.
Right.
But you really can kind of have it all, you know?
Yeah, and I think it happens in stages in people's minds. So what happens is I'm trying to pull people through that stage process faster so they don't waste their time on it. But it usually starts like this. You want to just find your place in the world and make sure you're not a fucking loser. Starts with that. Then you actually start to find your place and gain confidence that you'll be able to achieve your goals. Then you're ultra confident, you're working hard, and you're excited to get your goals, and you start to make big goals. You start to get closer to reaching those big goals, and you get excited that you're affirming your goals and that you're starting to achieve it. And then there starts this realization of like, there's more to life than just this. What do I want out of life? And let me start to work towards those. Then you start to think about, okay, now I'm going to make sure that not only do I have a good life now, but I'm also going to have a good life in the future. So I'm going to have savings. And then you still have these gaudy savings goals because you're like, okay, well, I want to have a great retirement. And then the next thing comes, okay, well, maybe the thing's more important than money. So I want to have generational wealth. And then there's the next realization, like maybe it's not good. Like, maybe my goals are so bigger than I need to be because maybe it's not good. I just give all my kids a bunch of shit instead of making them earn it. Right. So what does generational wealth really feel like? I feel like generational wealth is like standards and principles that the family has stood by and are taught down from generation to generation. And that I think the most valuable thing you can give in generational wealth is a standard of what it means to be in this family, and that you will always be someone that creates your own and it paves your own way, you know? And, you know, I just think about like what I want my estate to give kids, grandkids, great grandkids. And I would just hope a little bit of a boost to help you reach your dreams. But I definitely don't want to pave this, like live like a royal lifestyle. Like that's just not, that's so un-American, right? You know? And so I just don't believe in that. And so I think that what happens is that people kind of go through all those different stages I just mentioned, and it could take years. And some people will go through like their entire life and not even get through half of them and just keep chasing, right? Never realizing that they didn't have that much purpose to what they did. And so, and there's other part where people want to make a big impact so that they can be remembered, including by strangers, right? And like how much of it really matters, you know?
None of it matters. Even if you're super rich, there's the generational wealth is not going to protect your kids or your grandkids or your great grandkids from being dummies. Mm-hmm. You know, like it's. I always try to get people to just be selfish. Like, what makes you happy?
Yeah.
You know, and do that. For most people, that includes, you know, I want to have a good family. Right. So like me being selfish, one of the things I want is I want to have a happy wife. I want to have great kids. So what can I do to sort of promote that or make that happen? What are the things that I can do? And I think a lot of people get stuck. They never allow that to happen. They're always looking for external validation.
Yeah.
You know, particularly, especially now with social media and stuff like that, you know, everybody's always, you know, in a fancy location, driving a nice car, doing something fun.
Social media has had a really funny effect on me because I am such an against the grain person, and I mock the fake lavish lifestyles that people try to push on social media. I almost hide from it, but then it's a problem being to my own detriment. You know, if I don't have the intention of trying to show success, if I just have the intention of trying to give back the best I can, some of it should happen on social media because it does have a wider audience, and it probably gives me some of what my business needs, right? But my natural reaction is to clam up and just share with a few.
I don't think it gives, you know, I think that this is the type of stuff that gives your business a boost because it's actually helpful.
Right.
You know, the other stuff is a vanity play. You're either doing it because
I would never do the vanity play.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think that like if anything, I've been not. I mean, us doing this podcast was I've had the opportunity to do this for a while, to be on social more, right, with information that I know would help people, and I just chose for a long time not to because I'm just naturally shy away from any kind of spotlight. It's just not a natural thing for me. People who see me speak may not say that's how I appear in person, but when I speak in person, it's typically in a very class style setting. That's just have always been me. And so in those settings, I don't think about how I look. I think about how I'm teaching. I think about how the students need to learn. That's just the approach I take.
Yep.
And so, yeah. But I think that it's just becoming a lot more clear. So instead of having a certain amount of doors, it's like, I want a life that looks like this, and it's important to me because of why. And then work that backwards. Okay, that lifestyle would need this much this much cash flow, which means I need this much net worth, which means I need this much equity, and then if that converts into your door count or whatever, that's fine. Just start start with the real end in mind and work it backwards. So
Yeah.
it really matters. But still give yourself the opportunity that you could have fun and maybe it blows up into something bigger just because, but don't do it because, I remember the late Charlie Munger mentioned, he said he had his financial goal to basically get to, and he basically just overshot his goal substantially, not trying to. And I just find that extremely inspiring as like a lifestyle, like being very clear about who you are, what your value is, what you want out of life, and not letting things that the society tells you should be doing to change those goals.
Yep.
And being true to yourself.
Yeah, I think it's also really helpful when you do something like that, because what happens is people, let's say you come up with a number, I don't know, let's call it 10 million bucks. Doesn't really matter what the number is. Some people chase after that so hard that they don't do anything else until they get to that number. But if you figure out what it is that's important to you, you can often have 3/4 of your perfect life really fast.
Yes.
If you just identify what are the things that I can have that are don't have maybe any monetary requirements, you can still do those things now.
Right.
To have time freedom, you don't have to be super wealthy to have control over a majority of your time, let's say, and that may get, maybe 1,000 doors is what gets you to like everything that you want, but maybe 10 allows you the time to be able to do all those other things.
I've never had a door count goal. I just have a cash flow goal that provides a lifestyle goal.
But even that cash flow goal
and the net worth, and currently I know the net worth that gets me that number, but I might find a different way to get that cash flow goal with a smaller net worth. And if I do that and enjoy the process better, I'd rather just do that.
Yeah, but let's be honest. Right now, the cash flow goal for you really just gets you more stuff. You're kind of living your best life right now.
If anything, what my cash flow goal really does for me? This is the reason why I don't have a huge cash flow goal. I think $100,000 a month is still a lot of money, right? So it's 50.
Yeah.
It's because I've made 50 to 100,000 a month for many years, and so the first goal is when I don't have to work so hard to get it, is to get my time.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's what I've been. I mean, that's exactly what I've been doing.
Yeah.
I'm not making that much a month for sure, but I don't do hardly any work anymore. I mean, it's not exactly true, but if you looked at what my day was like, you would be like, what does this guy do? And it's really now, but it took me a lot of time to really create systems and get people into places that I just continued to sort of back my way out of like day-to-day operations.
Right.
In my law firm in particular, I haven't done a sales call. I don't do sales calls anymore. This year I haven't done, done 5. And
there's a part of me that's quite jealous of that.
Yeah. Right. And it's I tell you what though, it's kind of weird because then you're like, what do I do? And it does give you more time to do other things, grow the business more, spend time doing whatever you want. But it's something that I've been focused on for a long time, to the detriment potentially of more income or sort of some short-term benefits.
Right.
Because I've had to invest time in people and like build these systems up and do some of this kind of stuff. But I just kept trying to remove, and this is what I mean by that perfect day. I just kept trying to remove one thing at a time that would get me closer to I want to be able to do whatever I want.
Right.
Kind of a spot.
This is also why it's so important that your partner has those similar goals, because even if you guys have so much in common, if the goals get too far unaligned, then you start to have these different visions of your future and you start to go different directions.
Yes.
I think that there's definitely moments where Diane and I have we're off a little bit on that stuff.
Right.
But what I know is that in the core of who we are is very similar.
Yeah.
And so what usually happens is if I have a point of view that's different than hers, it's almost right on the dot. I'll have a conversation. I'll mention something. She will not totally agree. And a year and a half later, she's all of a sudden on the same board with me, which, I think is hilarious because that's almost exactly how much older I am than her.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I get now I don't have so many issues when we're not totally on the same, because I could tell we're close, but off just a little bit on something. And then she'll start to see that point of view more and like around the corner. And I'm like, this is kind of what I'm talking about. You know, I think I'm just maybe, you know, I'm just a little bit closer. I'm 18 months closer to my mortality than you are. So it tends to be that if I have an idea that's associated with a lifestyle thing, she might think that I'm going in this weird different direction. And then there's like a year and a half goes by and I hear her say basically the same things I said, like, you know, why am I going to all these parties all the time and trying to keep everyone happy? And it's like, you know, it's like, yeah, it's okay to have less friends. It really is, you know,
for sure.
You know, or when I was trying to pull back on having a simpler life, you know, I see her seeing it now. Like, you know how much easier things are when we just cut some of that shit out.
Right.
You know, and some of the things that we envision, it's just like, well, you know, our kids will be adults one day. You understand that, right? They're not going to live here anymore. So, the $15 million house on the lake, I just don't know how important that is when they're not living there full time.
Right. Yeah. And I think sometimes you attribute like your happiness or well-being to some of those things. And it takes not doing them to see that it's not actually giving you what you thought it was.
Well, Charlie actually mentioned it too. He talked about how a lot of his friends who established huge amounts of wealth bought really nice houses and he didn't see any of them get any happier.
Right.
You know, I think the happiness it gives you is very fleeting. You know, I think that it's just like a bigger version of buying.
Well, it's like, look, I tell Brooke all the time, you know, like I don't want to have a big house. I want to run into my family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I don't want to have separate wings where everyone doesn't speak to each other the whole day.
Yeah.
I want to bump into people. Like this is the point.
Yeah.
You know, we have a queen bed. She's like, we should get a king bed. I'm like, no. I want to bump into you.
That's my friend Jim and Debbie. Debbie's always wants the king bed. Jim's like, we're sticking with the queen. I like our king size bed.
I mean, people, I know. I'm just saying though. You know, for me, it's like, you know, it's.
But no, I like that though. I like it. Well, we got to cut it short because I have to jump into it our next meeting. But I think the message I want to give is that you should be thinking deep and hard about the lifestyle you really want and what even when you think about legacy and generational wealth, what really is wealth? Because the wealth of information and the wealth of setting a solid standard for your children, your children's children matters so much more than the money you pass down. And if you want to make sure there's enough money that it also gives them the boost that you never have to go through as hard as you went through, I get it. Some of that makes you who you are. I think that I think that when people talk about what matters when people talk about the people who've gone, what they matter to them the most, it's never about the money.
Yeah, I'll tell. I'll have one parting thought on this as well. And when it comes to this particular type of thing, waiting until you're gone to give your kids money doesn't make a difference. Mm-mm. Because in most circumstances, by the time you die, your kids are going to be not just grown-ups; they're going to be old people too.
Yeah.
You know, think about like I'm 43, I'm almost 44. You know, when my mom eventually dies, I'm sure she's going to give me something, but I don't need it.
Yeah.
You know, but when your kids are in their 20s and they want to start a business or they want to buy their first house or, you know, that's when capital can really, really jumpstart them.
That's pretty much what I want my trust to be. Like, yep. here's a boost for buying a house, buying a rental property, starting a business.
But the truth is, you're probably going to have to do it yourself. You know, the other great thing about that is that you get to show them how to make that stuff work.
Right.
You know, so that's the one thing I would say. So, all right, cool. We'll wrap it up. As always, this is the Business Barbershop.